What is up? Welcome to Movie Review Mom. Thanks for spending a few minutes with me while we talk about movies. I know I'm the one doing all the talking, but you can talk too. Comment down below. I always love hearing what you think about movies. So, the movie I'm reviewing today is called Ghost Lab. This movie will be available on Netflix only on May 26th. 2021. It's rated TVMA because it's a movie from Thailand, actually. I would probably give it a rating of an R, maybe because of language and content. I'll tell you more about that in just a minute. It's an hour and 57 minutes. And then I'll also give you my movie review mom score toward the end of my review, just to keep you watching. So I'm going to give you an overview in a nutshell. I'll point out things I liked and didn't like, as well as offer tips for parents, themes worth talking about, and I'll offer some recommendations for other movies that I think that you might like even better than this one. All right, so let's get started. In a nutshell, do you believe in the afterlife? Do you believe in ghosts? Well, those are the first two questions and words that you hear as soon as the movie starts. Would you like scientific evidence if you believe those things, or if you didn't believe those things? Well, that's what this chilling thriller is all about. Netflix describes the movie like this. After witnessing a haunting in their hospital, two young doctors become dangerously obsessed with obtaining scientific proof that ghosts exist. Dun, dun, dun. This is the very first Thai movie produced in Dolby Vision. It's directed by, okay, now here come a bunch of Thai names that are very difficult for me to pronounce. Paween Purijit Panya, and stars Thanapop Liratanakachorn and Paris Interakomaliasut. I apologize. That was really bad. All right, so let me tell you about some of the things that I really liked about the movie. First of all, I had never seen these young actors in anything before. And I always like meeting new actors, especially from other countries. There are definitely some overacting moments, but I thought it was still fun to see a film come out of Thailand and be introduced to this new director, the film actors, the crew, and everybody involved with this project. In the movie, these two doctors are obsessed with this magazine called The Experiment, where people write up all these crazy experiments as proof. And so they decide their big goal is to be able to definitively prove that ghosts are real and be on the front cover of this magazine called The Experiment. And actually, I really liked the idea. I looked it up to see if it was a real magazine, and I couldn't really confirm that. However, the actor whose first name is Paris, whose last name I can't pronounce, his character does talk about a bunch of real places in Asia that are super creepy and associated with ghost appearances. And those I can tell you for sure are real and legit places. So I appreciated that not all of the ghosts in the movie are creepy and gross and scary, because I do believe in ghosts, or what I will call spirits. And just like living people, there are good ones and bad ones. So you definitely are going to get goosebumps a few times in the movie. The movie takes a different twist than you would expect when it first starts out. And I love twists, and there are several. I was glad that the film takes a look at the pain that people feel when their loved ones are left behind after a suicide attempt. So that's just one element of the movie. There are actually some pretty good special effects, some not as good. And it has been on my bucket list for years, and I talk about it a lot whenever it comes up in movies, to see the Northern Lights, the Aurora Borealis. And so it was actually really interesting to learn that there's a different interpretation in some cultures of what the Aurora Borealis means. So you can check that out. Now, there were some things that I didn't like. First of all, some of the voice acting, I take that back. Almost all of the voice acting is terrible. When I say voice acting, I mean the voiceovers. The English speaking actors whose voice is on top of the Thai actors. If I were watching the original film, I would probably say, oh, yeah, those actors did a good job. But whoever cast the voice talent to do the dubbing was just really bad, especially in the first few minutes where you're like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to watch this. I kept pushing through so I could watch it, so I could tell you about the movie. But yeah, it's pretty bad. A lot of the dialogue, too, is super lame. And I was even watching it with captions, English captions on top of the dubbing. And I noticed that they didn't always match up. So it just makes me wonder, what were the original lines? What was the original script like? Maybe it was much better. I don't know. The movie is super melodramatic with some overacting moments. The pacing and tone of the movie changed dramatically from act one to act two, and then again to something else to act three. The movie is just kind of all over the place. Toward the end of the movie, something happens in a morgue that absolutely does not fit with the timeline of the story. In other words, there are some plot holes in the story. Now, one of the actors whose first name is Thanapop, which I think is a cute name, he is really good at crying these crocodile tears, and he does it often in the movie. Not every actor can do that. Now, it seemed like they were legit tears. I know sometimes, the directors will put solution in the actor's eyes to make them tear up, but it seemed like he was really crying. Now, if you catch the trailer on Netflix, don't freak out if you hear Thai spoken. The movie is actually in English, again, dubbed over in English. All right, so let me give you some tips for parents. First of all, I don't think this movie is super appropriate for kids. I think it's going to be really scary. There's some gore and just creepy, too scary for little kids, teenagers maybe. There's lots of profanity, including F bombs. People die violent deaths. A man does harm to himself. There's talk of gruesome deaths. And then sometimes you see it, sometimes there's just talk of it. However, there were some positive themes that the movie illustrated, such as life after death and even conversations about reincarnation. Other themes are suicide, murder, friendship, science, trying to discover the truth, mental health, even. And whenever I watch movies, I always write down the funny lines and the interesting lines so that I can share them with you and give you kind of a flavor for what the movie's all about. I always include them on my written reviews at moviereviewmom.com. So you can always check those out too. But for funny lines, I didn't write down anything. The movie is a really dramatic, serious film, but there were some interesting lines, and I'll just share a couple of them with you right now. Okay, so one of them is spoken by this character who's played by Thanapab, and he says, every day that we live is in itself a science experiment. We formulate a hypothesis, set our expectations, try to control all the variables. Some can be controlled, some can't. Sometimes what's been done is left in shambles, but whatever the result might be, we still learn something even when we think we didn't. So I really like that. And then again, in another conversation, he says, as we live our lives, we must continue to explore until our very last day. So I liked that. I liked the aspect of the search for truth and how both of these young doctors were very committed, probably too much, but they were very committed to finding out this one piece of truth out of all the mysteries in the universe. All right, so I thought it was interesting. I thought there were some interesting elements. However, there were a lot of moments in the movie that just made it feel very amateurish. So for those reasons and more, my ultimate movie review mom grade is a C plus. All right, but before we go, let me recommend two movies that I think are much better, that I think are very similar, that you're really going to enjoy. The first one that immediately came to my mind was an old movie called Flatliners with Julia Roberts, Kiefer Sutherland, Kevin Bacon, even, among others. And it's a similar story where there are medical students. Actually, I can't remember if they were medical students or actual full-blown doctors. But again, they wanted to learn, is there life after this life? What happens when the body dies here? Is there a spirit, and where does it go? So they do some experiments to try to figure that out. And it's creepy and interesting and insightful all at the same time. And then another one is the remake of Flatliners, which recently came out, I don't know, a year or two ago. And I didn't like it as much as the original, but it also could be just because I'd seen the original several times and that was sort of fresh at the time. But the remake is still good. So anyway, check both of those out, or one of them, if you kind of like this idea. Okay, that's it for my review. I hope if you watch this movie that you get a kick out of it. And if you don't, well, I gave you the heads up. Thank you for all of your support, for subscribing, liking this video, giving it a thumbs up. And by the way, be sure and join our Facebook group called Movie Review Mom Facebook group, where we have lots of fun conversations and play games and talk about movies and all that kind of stuff. So join us over there. All right, until the next movie review or trailer reaction, bye for now.